All right, so let's do this. I've never done a webinar before, so this is like making me very nervous and excited. Let me try to remove that glare too. Okay, there we go. Okay, maybe we'll do it like that. Okay, perfect. Welcome, everybody, to the first Webinar Wednesday. If you guys don't know me, I'm Jordan from Disrupt. I thought I would do the first one in this series, mostly because if it messes up, then at least it's on me and not one of our esteemed guests. As we go, I'll sort of fix things up a little bit. I'm going to share my screen with you in a minute, and we're going to talk about the topic of the day, which is how we can do some low cost but super high impact mental health hacks at your campus. Thanks for being here, guys. None of us thought that anyone would show up, so this is very cool. And in the interest of full transparency, we're at my place right now in Toronto, and you guys may know Callie and Lexi as well, and they're just over here. Woo! Yay! So now we'll get into it. Now that we got that out of the way, seriously, thank you. We have 26 people in the room right now. I was told by friends of mine when starting a webinar series that we could expect like 2. So this is blowing my mind already. All right, let's do this. So here's how it works. So I cannot hear you guys. I can't see you guys. And we're trying out this Demio software. We may not use it in the future. We'll sort of figure it out and I'll ask for some feedback later. Most importantly, throughout, there's going to be some interactivity. So get used to using that keyboard there. I have the screen where everyone is typing, and I'm looking at it out of one eye. Callie's also in the chat as well, too. And if you have any glitches, just message in and we'll get you sorted. If you have any problems during the webinar and you keep getting logged out or any weird glitches, email Callie at disrupt.com as well. And we'll rock it out. Cool. With that, let's do this. So I'm going to share my screen right here. I'm not going to do a full screen share anymore because I think that's making my computer go absolutely bonkers. What I am going to do is just share a little bit of my full window here, my entire screen. Share. And as that comes up, I'm going to start talking and going through everything. So my apologies for that, guys. That's not cool. Okay, so here is the underlying thing. When we started thinking about Brave Campus, all of a sudden, it became really clear that it had to be a collective exercise way beyond just Disrupt in our roster. This is a photo of a bunch of us from Coca, and we wanted to involve you guys. So our hope for this is that it becomes a way bigger collaborative effort between all of us. Maybe we'll spin it off into its own not-for-profit one day. But in the meantime, your involvement to us means everything. The underlying belief of a lot of this is very simple. There is a huge gap between the moment when someone, say a student on your campus, is like, I'm not really feeling so good, to the point where they reach out for help. And that gap is up and down. There's all sorts of peaks and valleys. It's really scary. I've been there myself. It took me 12, 15 years to start properly reaching out for the mental health support that I needed. Now, it's so tricky because when we're in the in-between there, it's a total shit show. Some days you wake up and you're like, I'm okay, I'm doing better. Other days you're just down and out and it's devastating. The thing is we don't really design our mental health programming to support people through the chaos of the middle of this at all. Now, we also kind of feel like it's not about stigma anymore. We see all kinds of programs that are, all about let's fight stigma. I don't really believe that at most campuses stigma exists in the way it once did. I think we actually use stigma as a point of contention for why we're not seeing the action. I think people don't judge others when they're hurting as much as they once did because there's a greater awareness. The challenge is that judging or the lack of judging doesn't necessarily mean that we're taking action. The other thing, too, is it's not really about awareness. I mean, there's so many initiatives for mental health awareness. At this point in time, there's plenty of awareness, and nor is the challenge about access. Most campuses have tons of resources for formal mental health support. So our opportunity is to think beyond that to why and what someone is experiencing between the moment that they're like, I'm not feeling so good, through to the moment where they feel okay. So we believe that the biggest challenge facing mental health and mental wellness, especially on campuses, is that many, many students feel powerless, and many organizers feel powerless as well. There's this funny imposter question that we ask ourselves. It's like, Who are we to take ownership? How do we take ownership over this? This is so big. We're not clinical psychologists. The reality is very simple. The reality is that there's high impact ways that we can encourage mental health and mental wellness from our everyday campus programming. We just have to think about things a little differently. There's 3 baseline rules I want to share, and then we're going to get into a bunch of the ideas. The first is that despite what we think, it can be cheap. I've met so many campus leaders that invest like a lot of money in bringing in a program or a speaker or a workshop series or whatever, and they just don't see the benefit. And then so what ends up happening is there's this idea like we have to spend 10 grand just to address the conversation of mental health, which of course we don't at all. The second thing that I want to lay out there is that it can be easy. This does not have to be rocket science. Some of the ways that we can encourage mental wellness and improve mental health on campus are just everyday simple actions, simple ideas with a twist. It doesn't have to be more difficult than anything you do now. And the last is that this can also be fun. You know, when we talk about mental health, so often we're like, ooh, mental health, scary. This is just like, it's such a big, serious thing. What if we learn to laugh and engage and have fun with it? What would that look like? So I would love to know in the chat box on the side, think about your campus, think about your community. What is challenging your students' mental wellness right now? Like what roadblocks are in the way? What is holding students back from either getting the support they need or voicing what's going on or simply just like feeling okay? What do you think is holding students back on your campus? Let me know. Let's share a couple things in the sidebar and then we'll talk about them. Go back right over here. Okay, perfect. Okay, perfectionism. Thank you, Aaron, for that. 110%. They feel like they can't admit they're struggling and need some help. I love it. Being in a marginalized group. Absolutely. Accessing information for the services and support available. Thank you very much. There's an intense fear of failure. Absolutely, Kevin. Thank you for sharing that one. It's so true. There's so much anxiety that comes from that, and we see that at students at all levels. Jenny, that is a great point as well, that once students need the help, they're no longer in a state of mind to find the resources that they need. Absolutely. When your mind's in a state of fight or flight, it is very difficult to think rationally about where to get the support. And then even though things may be right in front of us, we don't see it for what it is, or we have other barriers that are preventing us from reaching out. Economic difficulties and troubles at home, absolutely. We got a couple +1s for perfectionism. Not talking about failure. Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. Stress, pessimism while expecting perfection. Okay, so we're seeing a lot of perfectionism, a lot of anxiety. Ooh, Sarah, that's a great one. Being away from home for the first time and feeling comfortable sharing with strangers when students just become comfortable talking about it at home. Absolutely. And moreover, what are we doing from a programming perspective to encourage people to go from being strangers to very intensely bonded individuals? These are great, guys. I encourage you to keep sharing because you guys can all see these as we go through. And so this is actually a perfect leeway into my first point. So we're going to look at a handful of categories of what we can do to encourage low cost but high impact mental health building activities on campus. The first is sharing stories. Now, we all are probably aware for the most part of Humans of New York, right? A project that started a number of years ago. A gentleman goes around New York, takes very straightforward portraits, but then talks to people for a long period of time and gets like a little nugget of gold. Now, Humans of New York has blown up. As I'm sure you guys know, it's turned into a bunch of books. The blog is obviously hugely famous. The gentleman that runs the project is like super recognizable in New York now. And think about how simple it is just to take a photo and share something that's real. But here's what's not known popularly about Humans of New York. The guy that runs it actually talks to these people for a very long time. And in fact, it's quite normal for him to hang out with some of his subjects, some of the people he photographs, for a couple times before he gets something that he thinks is that really compelling. He's masterful at curating these moments. Kind of like if you guys listen to anything by Ira Glass, This American Life, Serial, Shittown, any of those shows, all those podcasts are so good at curation. And so thinking about the people that exist on your campus, I know many of you have Humans of New York like programs on your campus. Humans of Vanier College, Humans of McGill, Humans of UBC, Humans of Cal State. What's stopping you if you don't have that program already? How can you get a couple volunteer students to lead the charge of going around campus a couple times a week and passively observing people as they go through their day-to-day lives and capture them and then pull out a nugget? Right now in our digital culture, I see this especially working with kids. We are so hungry to see other people do everyday things that the most seemingly simple thing can be absolutely magical. And that's the cool thing about Humans of New York. And how simple is it? You could have a Facebook page or a blog. You take some photos, you take some captions, and that's it. Another comparable one is a buddy of mine's project, Souls of Society. Dijon started this project in San Francisco like 5 years ago. And they take like it's a little bit more photographic based, but there's still storytelling in it. And if you're looking at a different take on Humans of New York, Souls of Society is a remarkable project as well. So if you found some students on your campus that loved doing portrait photography and wanted to be able to dig in and go and observe and find really great subjects, that would be a very cool way to tell some stories. And you could even do it without text entirely if you wanted and capture it. Another comparable program, something to get some ideas going, is Raconteur Storytelling. This one's out of Toronto here. A friend of mine runs it, and it's been running for 4 or 5 years now. And it's a monthly storytelling event featuring people from Toronto sharing 10-minute stories about a different theme. It's at a place called the Transac in Toronto. For anyone that's been to Toronto, you'll know that the Transac is like a hole. Like, it's a total dive bar. It seats about 150 people, but these events sell out like that. It's turned into a TV show, a national radio show, a podcast. And what it does is it just captures, again, these everyday moments. So some of the themes that they've done lately are things like, they had this great night that I loved about stories from the ethnic aisle at the grocery store. And it was intended to be this really cool multicultural storytelling adventure where they had people tell different stories about things that had happened to them in grocery stores or things that they had experienced being from a variety of different ethnicities and living in Toronto and bringing their own culture into the everyday corporate world of a grocery store. It was fantastic. I once spoke at one of these under the banner of the kindness of strangers, telling a story about something I was involved in a number of years ago. And it was just magical. And it's worth noting, these are not professional speakers. These are just like really candid storytelling events. So let me turn it on you guys. What would a very simple coffee house or pub night look like where you have the stories of your college come out, and then you do it monthly? And each month it's a different theme. You have people sign up in advance. You assign them to find a couple volunteers that would be able to maybe loosely coach them on storytelling to find a cool story that could be told in 10 minutes. You could assign them a bunch of resources online. I have a bunch floating around if you want to see some about how to tell a good story really quickly. And then you have people come together, share a beer at your campus pub or coffee or whatever, hang out and listen to these everyday stories. It'll be a hit. Again, right now we are so hungry for reality. If you want to check it out, how these guys do it, I think it's just racontours.ca. Really phenomenal. And not to be confused with The Raconteurs, which is, of course, a great indie rock band out of Detroit. The Raconteurs was actually inspired by The Moth, and early on they were actually partnered with The Moth. They were going to be like the Canadian version of The Moth. The Moth has a really great college program as well. It's super expensive and cost prohibitive. They bring in coaching and stuff. I mean, there's value to it if you can afford it, and I've heard really good things, but I think it's something you can do on your own. So if you're looking for a couple really cool concepts of how to do storytelling events, check out especially The Moth and Raconteurs. If you want to stick to something that's more digital based or photography based, look at Souls of Society and certainly Humans of New York. Cool. Send in a little message and let me know what you think of those so far. I'm going to get on to the next section, and then at the end of that one, we're going to break and I have another question for you. So the second category is this: giving thanks. What can you do on your campus to help students give thanks? There's so much research that has gone into the fact that gratitude is instrumental in mental wellness. But the challenge is when we think of gratitude, we think of like a bunch of yogis like meditating on a platform overlooking the Himalayas. And while that can be great, that's certainly not everything at all. So why not create a way that we can do everyday acts of gratitude on campuses? Some of you may know a guy named Blake Fly. He's a speaker up here in Toronto. He does a lot of Canadian stuff, some stuff in the US, and he has these amazing parties at his house where he runs what he calls his thank you program. Now, thank you is where he brings about 20, 30 people together informally at his place, and then he does a bigger annual event here in Toronto where he gives everyone three thank you cards, and they just say thank you like that on the front, and they're totally blank otherwise. And the idea of having three is that during the event itself, we sit in a circle and we write one to someone that's helped us and we want to say thanks to in the last 30 days, and one to ourselves. The last one we leave blank and we're supposed to take it home with us and use it within the next week. Now, saying thank you to someone that's helped you recently is a wonderful way to stay grounded. And what a cool thing to be able to take a moment of time and write that card. And then what you do is we all shared. We went around the room, all 20 of us, and we read aloud some examples of who we were thanking if we felt comfortable to do so. The real trippy thing, though, was thanking yourself. So this is a photo of my card from the last event of his I was at. You can see my name on the front there, Jordan. And I'll read you guys what I wrote to myself. And then you can imagine we get like 3 or 4 minutes to write these down to ourselves. We're going through it. And then like a lot of us are in tears. I mean, it gets really emotional when you think about how hard we are on ourselves and give ourselves a moment to say thanks. It was just like mind blowing. And so it came for me to share what I had written with the audience. And here's what I wrote. And my writing's really, really bad, so I'll read this to you guys. Jordan, you piece of shit, stubborn mess of a guy. Man, you're awesome. You fight like hell, roll with the punches, and keep learning iteratively. No matter how hard things get, know you'll be okay. You've been through more than you bargained for, and that won't change. This is you. You've arrived, and I couldn't be happier. Jay. I'm going to get a little teared up just from reading that. Because, I mean, if any of you guys, if I've spent time with any of you guys, I've spent time with a bunch of you, and some of you have seen me speak and do my thing. I mean, I can be really hard on myself. And we all can be really hard on ourselves. So taking this moment to share this honestly with ourselves is so powerful. If you guys want to talk to Blake about how he does this, I would be pleased to connect you. He's a really good guy. You don't have to bring him to your campus. It's nothing like that. But he's learned so much about how to structure these events in a really cool way. I'm sure he'd be happy to send you guys a bunch of these cards. So the thank you party is phenomenal. And you can do these, you know, as small as a little group of people that are getting together all the way up to like a way bigger group event of hundreds of people. And again, connect with us and we'll connect you to Blake to have a chat about that. The next is a buddy of mine, UJ Ramadas. Him and his business partners started something called the 5-Minute Journal. Some of you guys may see it in your local bookstore, on Amazon. It's sold super well. Guys like Tim Ferriss swear by it. And all that it is every day. Let's see if I have mine around. Actually, oh no, I don't know where mine is right now. It's just probably not a good sign of how often I'm using it. I have to use it more, but basically all it asks is like, what are you grateful for this morning? And then you fill it out again at the end of the day. So it literally takes 5 minutes a day tops. And it's just friggin' magical because you start to see some of the patterns of what you're grateful for and the good things that are happening and also the things that are challenging you too. There's also a really good free app of this too, made by the same guys. So just 5-Minute Journal. Let's go over to you guys. So what if you include this to all your new students? Like these journals don't cost much. I mean, I think if you buy them on group discount, they're probably like $10 or so. Imagine the gift of being able to give this to all the students when they're coming in. Or maybe you create like a 5-Minute Journal club on campus, or maybe a specific club that already exists champions this. Maybe you just start within your executive team as a team building practice where you guys start doing this independently every day. Again, if you want to talk with UJ or his team, he's a buddy of mine. I can connect you guys over Facebook Messenger or whatever. If there's a lot of interest, maybe I can inquire about UJ and seeing how cheap we can buy a bunch maybe together. Because I'd love to buy a bunch of gifts as well too. But I mean, I'm sure we can do it in a way that's not cost prohibitive. I can't say this enough, but like, I mean, when I'm doing this every day and I mess up and screw it up all the time, it is like remarkably effective. So that's the 5 minute journal. I started doing a lot of research over the last couple of months about like just really simple little hacks of things that you can do. And I found this example online and I love it. It was this Take What You Need campaign at a bunch of colleges in the US where they would have these things all over campus, all over their campus. This was in one of the washrooms in particular. And you can see on the bottom there, it's so simple. All these flowers are taped to this poster and says, take what you need: hope, kindness, happiness, motivation, and love. And you grab a petal of what you need. And just the act of touching something and grabbing it, there's so much research that goes to show that that act of taking something and folding it up and putting it in your pocket, it embodies it. It embodies what you need and it increases positive thoughts. Think how simple that is. You could do that for so cheap and it would be remarkably effective. And also it'd probably make your bathroom smell nice. Gratitude jars. So I was looking to try to find a world record of who has built like the world's largest gratitude jar, and I can't. I mean, maybe that's a challenge that you guys want to take it. You want to do like the world's biggest gratitude jar, or like pool or something. Again, imagine for every student that's coming in, or when you're doing orientation or during exams, when things are stressful, you have massive gratitude jars everywhere. Like, you know, like those big, like almost like if you're going to brew beer, like that size of thing. Imagine you had a bunch of those and then just sticky pads and people could write stuff and you put it in. Occasionally, maybe you crack it open or dump them out and you take photos of them and put them online. Like, think how simple that is. But just the act, again, of someone writing down what's going on and how they're feeling, and then sharing that with other people, I mean, that does a whole lot of good. And again, I haven't been able to find a world record for the world's largest gratitude jar, so I implore one of you guys to take it on. Seriously. Okay, let's take a pause here. Send me a note. I'm going to go back to the chat window for a sec. Send me a note. Let me know how we're doing here so far. So let me know if you're getting good, if these ideas are good so far, if you're liking it, or what I could do better, and we'll go from there. Okay, Tyrell, great. Oh, Jenny, that's awesome. Jenny says they have a kindness week and students fill out sticky notes and fill the elevators. That's a great idea. Sweet. All right. It sounds like we're doing well. I'm guessing that you guys wouldn't write in if I was sucking right now. But at least, hey, my computer's not dying. So we're one step ahead. All right. I'm going to keep going. Feel free to keep chatting amongst yourselves there. And I'll check in. All righty. Okay. Okay. Item or area number 3, share anonymously. Okay, you guys may have heard of this one. This is a really wonderful project, the Before I Die wall project. So some of you guys probably have this at your campus already because it's blown up lately, but if you haven't, I think it's like beforeidie.org or something. If you just Google it, it'll come right up. But it's a not-for-profit project where they will send you the blueprint for the wall of how to build one and how to stencil it. And then essentially, like, you just put out a bunch of chalk and people come and share things. What you would want to do is probably assign like a student lead of some kind to make sure that the things that are written on it are okay, because it's going to be out 24/7. So you just want someone to stop by every day and have a look and make sure things are all right. In our experience of doing some of this anonymous, like, post on a wall thing, typically the content is way better than what you think it would be. Like, people don't really post shit if the vast majority don't to begin with. So, I mean, it's really great. I'm just noticing right now, as I look at this slide, that towards the bottom in the middle, you can see that Before I Die, someone wants to go to a Nickelback concert, which is kind of a bummer. Amazing. So check out Before I Die. You can do like 1 or 2 of these at your school during orientation. Again, I mean, doing Blackboard paint, it'll cost you $100 and then a thing of white paint. And this is something that draws. And again, keep in mind, you know, one of the things that we talk a lot about and how to draw students to events, if you've read any of our blogs or anything, is like, one thing we found is like, create Instagram worthy physical stuff in your school that people want to take a photo with. So that shares online and students get behind it and excited. And the Before I Die wall is a wonderful example of that. Next one, and this is something that's kind of cool. So for anyone that has seen or is aware of my What's Your Big Lie project, we started to do something a little different in the last little bit. We started doing pop-up exhibits. I know this is going to sound really bizarre coming from a company that's a primarily speaking agency, but like most speakers kind of suck. And especially like talking about this really heavy duty stuff. And we find a lot of speakers aren't really moving the needle. And we found that students aren't drawn to come out to see speakers because, like, why? I mean, I think it's kind of crazy that we would expect people to drop everything and go into a room at a time and a place to be there. So what we do, our strategy is to go like really above and beyond and create excitement around the event and like buzz, so that there is more heart to it. And by the way, if you've booked me for the fall, I promise I'll put a lot of effort into this, because it's not about being a speaker, it's about being a facilitator. So like we'll do a pop-up exhibit asking the what's your big lie question, where students will text in some of the stuff that's going on, and then we project it in different areas of the school. Initially, when we started this, we had like a big fancy pop-up thing with like these screens and like all that crap. We still do it a bit, but now what we found is way better. It's just like projecting in random hallways. And so now instead of having like one cluster of like 8 projections going everywhere, we'll spread it out in a couple little pods at schools. And so this was from, I was at college in Seattle, just south of Seattle a little bit ago. And this was one of the photos. And I mean, I just thought it was so perfect. I've kept secrets about my mental health, sexuality, and everything because I'm afraid of hurting the people I care about. Now, why I mention this as a low cost, high impact thing is because we're actually going to start to license the software that we use for this platform. So like the anonymous texting to projection software, we're going to start licensing it for the fall. So if anyone's interested, like let us know. It's way cheaper than having us come and do the whole pop-up experience. And you can just grab projectors that are around your school. Otherwise, we'll happily come in and do the whole experience. And it's really cool and very moving. But just like, I mean, that little bit shared from a student, as people walk by and they take it in, it gives people permission to feel what they're feeling and to lean into their pain, because they acknowledge that although it doesn't feel like it, the people in their hallways, their peers and friends, are struggling in similar ways to them. And that is wonderfully empowering for the person that's sharing, but also for the people that witness that. So it's really something amazing that we've stumbled into. I don't pretend to have anything all of the what's your big lie stuff was just kind of an accident that just ended up working. And right now we're seeing so much traction around dynamic displays in schools and being able to share this stuff in real time. So we can talk about that. This is another example. I mean, just like this was a this was a poster from a campus hub, and we put a projector on it and we started to take some video and film of it, and just like, think about that. I mean, like this is an advertisement for like a yard cleanup at school. And we had this submission come in that just said, people think I have an alcohol problem, but I really don't think I do. It's pretty real. Post Secret. So some of you guys / all of you guys probably know that we work with Frank Warren from Post Secret. This was a big thing for us because Frank really like invented the category of all this. Frank tours North America constantly, and a lot of cool stuff's in the pipeline for him, which is awesome. But why I wanted to share Frank in this context of anonymous sharing is because he was really like the guy that started this with his postcard project. Now, if you're not familiar with Post Secret, it's worth checking out. You can just go to postsecret.com. Effectively, he was a postcard collector, and 13 years ago, he asked people to mail him anonymous postcards with a secret on it. Super simple. And it turned into this incredible project where people were putting together these little pieces of art and mailing them off. Now there's been over 1 million secrets received. There's an exhibit at the Smithsonian Museum. He's had a bunch of New York Times bestselling books. It's awesome. Active Minds, for our American friends that are on the call here, Active Minds has a Post Secret U project where they basically use the Post Secret methodology, and like they've learned from Franca how to do it, so they can do postcard sharing on their campus. And it's very, very cool. So if you don't want to bring in Frank, or you can't afford it, like totally cool. But like the idea of writing down something and doing something that's anonymous and heartfelt is really amazing. And I don't have any photos in here, but I mean, just check out Post Secret and you'll see like how much thought and art and creativity goes into each of the submissions. And it's just wonderful. And then what ends up happening, what we hear is for people that create these postcards, it's a wonderfully cathartic experience. But on the flip side, I mean, again, it's about giving permission and sharing that same sense of, hey, you're not alone. Let me just show you a couple right here, because I have a couple Post Secret books just in the cabinet right here. So this was like the first big post secret book. He even put his home address. That's his actual home address on the front, which is kind of crazy. Interestingly enough, though, he just sold this house and he moved, and it's so you can still mail it there, and it's forwarded to his new address. But I just couldn't believe that I just gave it away so clearly. I mean, Frank's amazing like that. Frank may even be on the webinar right here. Who knows? But look at these works of art. I mean, my goodness, like just. Oh, they're just so awesome. I'm jealous of her baby. I feel guilty all the time. I'm homeless and no one, not even my family, knows about it. Just open to a random page right here. Oh, look at that. Income from teaching creative writing, $32,654. Income from writing creatively, $0. Just think about how cool that is. And look, I mean, if you want to talk about bringing Frank to your campus, cool. This is not like a salesy thing at all. Like, happy to have that discussion. But honestly, I think one of the greatest ways to like learn from what Frank has created is to look at how you can unleash people's creativity in a really cool way and motivate your students to share. Okay, next section. So that was share anonymously. So, and the underlying point of share anonymously is this. I've done this talk before at COCA for our American friends. That's like the Canadian version of APCA and NACA. And one of the things I talked about was like how important sharing anonymously is to build a narrative that we're not alone. And when we do that, we feel more willing to acknowledge the pain we're feeling inside. What I've seen is that if you can take people through a process of seeing other people share things anonymously, it encourages people to share as we are, share in the flesh, share things as Jordan or as Liz or as Megan or as Christina or Jack or whatever. So it's a really powerful lever to encourage people to be more real. In that vein, a wonderful friend of mine, Jonah Evans, has him and his team and his partner have this amazing project called Dear World. For our American friends, you guys, I'm sure, you've seen Dear World around. For our Canadian friends, I mean, hopefully we'll get them north of the border. In effect, this is what they do. They go in, they train a bunch of campus leaders to pull really thoughtful, amazing stories out of their peers. And they do that on night one. So they have this whole training thing. And the next day, all day, they take these really cool portraits of students. So the students will be like, hey, I want to do a portrait. And they'll be like, cool. And the student will be assigned with one of the leaders that's been trained. And they'll sit down and be like, all right, so what do you want to share? What do you want to write on your arms? How are you going to capture like something that was really important to you? And then what ends up happening is they kind of do like why do you feel that way? Why is that important? Tell me more about that. And they get into it to the point where you get some really cool, amazing portraits. And then at the end of the day, what they do is they release all the photos on Facebook. Everyone's going nuts. It's really cool. It's out there. You're putting your face to a story, right? And then they have an evening event where they'll work with, I believe it's 6 or 8 of the students who will share that story on stage. So it's a pretty wild 36-hour experience, but it's just gone gangbusters. And I mean, Jonah is just a remarkable friend of a bunch of us. And he's just such a sweet guy, and his whole team is amazing. But look, I mean, how amazing is that? You're putting it out there. You're being as you are. Now, I mean, in an ideal world, of course, Dear World, they have a team, they travel. If you can ever bring them in, I mean, I think it's amazing. But if you can't, I mean, again, it's just about learning from these ideas. How are you enabling students to share their story through a portrait or through writing on their arms, right? And how are you capturing that and honoring that? Again, going back to what I was saying early on, these stories of the people that surround us are one of the most fascinating things we have right now. We have access to so much information and stories everywhere, but sometimes we're missing the things that are right square in front of us. This is a really cool project too. I just came across this in researching this webinar. It's hard to see because the picture's a little pixelated, but in the UK, there was this cool social media viral campaign called It Affects Me. And the idea was, if you are impacted by mental wellness or mental health, and we all are in one way or another, put this sticky note on your forehead and take a selfie and then post it. Check it out. I believe it's itaffectsme.org. It is so cool. So cool, so simple, incredibly impactful. You have all these famous actors and all sorts of people that are coming in and doing this. It's basically like the ice bucket challenge for mental health. It's just phenomenal. So that's itaffectsme.org. The Friendship Bench. So there's a couple different projects like this. The Friendship Bench is a Canadian one where they install these yellow benches in different academic institutions. So they're at a bunch of high schools and colleges, universities. And the idea is if I'm sitting on that bench, it means that I'm there to talk to somebody or I want to be heard. And it's just amazing what it's done because all of a sudden it's created a space for people to just sit down and listen, or sit down. Like if I was distressed and I was feeling really alone and vulnerable, you can go and sit there without shame, and someone will sit down next to you and be like, hey, what's up? How you feeling? Like, how cool is that as a concept? They're blowing up. It's one of the coolest projects I've seen. The photos here don't really do it justice. Just so you know, the one with balloons there, that is for a grand opening. It's not like they're always like highlighted and having balloons around it. Like that's just, they're celebrating it. I see these at a bunch of campuses now, and it just brings me so much joy. And people do hang out. They do sit there. There's similar things that you can do. I mean, I've heard of all sorts of events where, you know, it's kind of like those, like, are you single or are you not parties where you have a different color bracelet. I've seen different events on campuses where, you know, I'll wear a yellow bracelet if I feel like if I want someone to listen to me, or I'll wear a green one, you know, if I want to be there to support someone else. Just like, I guess what it's saying is like, how do you create other ways for people to connect? Because oftentimes it's really hard just to like arbitrarily walk up to someone and be like, hey, I'm not doing so good. You want to talk? But if there's a place to sit, if there's something to wear that identifies us as a willing party, it's really, really beautiful. And not to mention inclusive. I think that's something that we don't talk about enough in this. It's wonderfully inclusive. Peer support centers. I know a couple folks from Vanier are on the webinar. Go Vanier! I give Vanier a lot of praise all the time because their peer support center is like one of the best I've ever met. For anyone that's not familiar with Vanier, any of our US friends, Vanier College is a college in Montreal. And my God, have they nailed the peer support experience. And if any of you guys are looking for a blueprint on how to do a really great peer support program that works for students, that has demand, that encourages a broader, transparent conversation about how even the peer supporters are doing, as well as the people that engage in the service. I mean, Vanier nailed it. And if anyone, Nicole, I know you're on. If anyone else from Vanier is on, I mean, I would absolutely love if you guys would do one of these webinars at one point to take us through how you created the program, the things you learned along the way. Because I mean, I know it's not easy to build a program that works really well, and I'm sure there was lots of troubling times throughout. So I want to just recap on this section really quickly. So think about it this way. So we were talking about storytelling. We were talking about sharing anonymously. We were talking about sharing in person. And all of these are meant to just like trigger different ideas. I encourage you to think in a really creative way. Now, let's talk about group challenges. Okay, group challenges. So like, what can you do together as a big group that's fun? I don't know if you guys ever saw this one, but this was super cool. This was in New Jersey. There is a cardboard manufacturing company, and they mass produced, like, I think it was 28,000 of these puzzle pieces that were like 18 inches by 18 inches. And they shipped it to this massive convention center where they put together, I think this is the world's largest puzzle, if not very close to it, for autism awareness. It's just a remarkable story. And the photo, I mean, this photo is super cool, but just Google photos of it. It's incredible. But what a cool challenge. And I wanted to share this one for a couple of reasons. One, I think anytime you can do something that is like obnoxiously large or has the potential to be like the world's largest of something, immediately there's a community effect around it. Anytime you can create a ridiculous challenge, students, and I mean, we all get behind it. I was talking to Lexi the other day about how at Queen's Engineering Frosh, they have the pole that is like, it's like this oiled up flagpole, and you have to scale it. And like but it's like in this mud pit or something crazy. So everyone's like on each other's backs. This pole has like oil on it. So you're slipping around, everyone's covered in mud, people fall down, blah, blah, blah. And the goal is to be able to get something from the top or put like the queen's hat on the top, something like that, I forget. But just think about how ridiculous and absurd that is. But yet every year people die to go. They die to be part of it. So I would say the same for you guys. I mean, anytime you want to motivate a huge group of people for action, put a cool, unorthodox challenge to it. Because, I mean, it's something that doesn't have to cost a lot of money. You don't have to print out 28,000 puzzle pieces, but just get creative with some of the opportunities you have. If you look up on Pinterest, I do a lot of research on Pinterest these days. I was blown away by the amount of like anxiety challenges, the self-care challenges that are out there. And these are just 5 ones that I found. So it's going to be hard for you guys to see exactly, but there was a 21-day anxiety challenge, a summer counselor, summer self-care challenge, a 21-day mental wellness challenge, and a 30-day self-care challenge. What would it look like if you had a broader campus-wide challenge where every day you came up with a cool act for people to do? Something that was really innovative and cool, something that was even very simple some days. And maybe you have different thematically divided weeks, different things that you're tackling, and you create a challenge around that. Maybe you create a point system. Maybe there's like, you have a leaderboard, like whatever can motivate. But the blueprint's already out there, guys. Like you could do a kick-ass 21-day anti-anxiety challenge during an exam period. And it would be rocking if you came up with really cool things every day. Maybe you planned the occasional event around it, but like really basic stuff. That'd be amazing. And then like everyone can have like a punch card or something and they get like a punch for everything that they do. Maybe it's something where you're hinting what to do and people have to put in some work to find what it is or figure it out. Make it fun. Make it engaging. Make it a community effort. Engage your campus influencers. Engage your campus leadership. Get your dean or provost to do it as well. That is how you get people motivated. Now, I'm almost done, and then I want to go to you guys. And because of how the screen's working, I want to just go through this last part, and then I want to ask you guys of some of your best ideas that have come up in the last couple of years, or maybe just in this session. But what's something that you're thinking of that we haven't talked about here that is really awesome that should be shared with everyone? So let's have a conversation around that in just a second. In the meantime, start thinking on that, okay? And feel free to start writing in your response. This last section, I have called, actually, second last section. The last section will be very quick, though. I've called Weirdly Awesome. Now, so what are some things that, building on the challenge component, are just like bizarre, but really cool? And these ideas came out from a recent educational session that we did at COCA, same one that I mentioned before. Someone said, hey, why not do something using what Au Noir is all about? For anyone that doesn't know what Au Noir is a restaurant where you dine blindfolded in the dark, okay? There's one in Toronto. I think there's a couple elsewhere. And the thing is all the serving staff is visually impaired. So it's a way of getting that sensory rise while you're eating. And it's a way to engage folks that are visually impaired in just like a fascinating way. People flock to these things. They love it. You can see in the photo here, people are walking in. Some have blindfolds on, others don't, but they're going into a dark room and they have their hands on each other's shoulders to follow the leader, right? And then when you get your food, it's already like pre-cut for you and everything else. It's super, super cool. But what if that's not the weirdly awesome part? That's just the awesome part. The weird part would be, what if you combine that with some sort of peer support circle, right? What if you, okay, so imagine this. Like, imagine you wanted to create a club, like a real talk club. Sometimes I talk about this, like a club where people could share the things that are going on. There's like a cone of silence, you know, just in a really cool way. But when you walk in, you have to be blindfolded. And maybe you have a volunteer help them get seated and the room's dark as well so that people can't cheat. Maybe then each week someone different leads. And then within that, wouldn't it be really, really, really cool if all of a sudden, like you could share? And for many people like that are in the room, you wouldn't recognize each other's voices, especially if you're from a bigger campus or if this was a bunch of students from different areas of the campus and different backgrounds. But then it takes away the visual thing. Sometimes the second we can hide, we feel more safe to verbally share. That's something I've learned for sure through my work. So what could that look like? How could you combine something like Au Noir with peer sharing? I think that'd be super cool. One idea that came up in that same session was in Canada, there used to be this, maybe it still exists, but this like MTV like channel called Much Music. And Much Music for years had something called Speaker's Corner. And I don't have a good image to really like impress upon you how awesome it was at the time. But in effect, where it says speakers there on the slide, there's this little booth and you would go into it. It's like bigger than a phone booth. And it would basically, you just push a button, it would start recording, and you could say like, hey, this message goes out to my mom. Hey, mom. Or like you could like propose over it, or you could like, I don't know, share a funny story or tell a joke, whatever. The image to the right is what it looked like. They did this little speaker corners pop up. I think this image was from Vancouver. But so imagine like these little clips of like people like sharing different things of their life. Now let's go down to like the mental wellness level here. So imagine you wanted to share a really real story, but you wanted to do it in kind of a funky way. So why not combine like something like this? Like it's almost like a photo booth meets filming sort of experience where you film a 30-second clip while you're wearing a ridiculous mask. Like something that just makes like no sense at all. So you can imagine like you get in, you're kind of distressed. You're like, oh man, I got to tell you like the story that no one knows about me. But you're wearing like a monkey mask, or like, I don't know, like a Trump mask, or like a dude from Scream mask, or like whatever. Like have funny costumes, make it fun. You can combine mental health and fun. It's okay. But how cool would that be? And how much more inclined would we be to listen if all of a sudden we were watching these videos of these people sharing these like these secrets, this pain, or maybe just everyday little observations, whatever it is, while wearing a mask. And now you could share that online. You can make a little YouTube channel. You can make playlists. You could project little clips all over your campus. There's so many different ways. An interesting sort of mental way to think about this is you can like just be like, okay, what's something that's like a very everyday thing that we see at most events? And then how do we do something that is like totally different from it and bring the two together? Being contrarian is an amazing place to get traction and excitement. That's something that we try to do a lot here with our team. We have some cool programs that are coming up soon where things are like super contrarian. And we think that's just a great way to excite, because I mean, I'm excited whenever I hear of like something really bizarre. Like, I don't know, like the Prime Minister of Canada was in like a boxing match not too long ago with the previous head of the Canadian Bank. I mean, like how cool is that? Just things that you don't expect, right? Okay, last section, and we're going to go to you guys. So keep thinking on your ideas that are coming up. I know we're running a little towards overtime here. I appreciate your patience. We just got delayed a couple minutes off the top, but just 5 more minutes and we'll be done, okay? I want to talk about apps. This is the last part, apps. Apps are really important because we often don't promote the kinds of apps that can truly support our students when they need it the most. When we think about anonymous apps, especially, a lot of us have a bad taste in our mouth from Yik Yak. And what I want to say to you is 2 things. 1, Yik Yak sucks, and there's like a lot of awful conniving shit that happens there. But 2, a lot of the app development community that's now doing really thoughtful, fascinating apps have actually figured out how to do like really amazing things in anonymous environments that's much more safe and moderated. Talk Life is an app I mention all the time to people. It's great for high school students, middle school as well, but mostly high school students and college, university students. And it's a fully anonymous place. It's a community of 1.3 million users last time I checked, from like 120 different countries, where you can post the things that are going on, and then within seconds you can get a public response on that. And there's no like, what I like about it is like there's no weird like direct messaging or anything like that. Like everything is out there. It's a fiercely moderated community. So if there's any like slander or shit talking or whatever, like it's gone in a second. It's amazing. And what's so cool about it, because it's global, is you can post 24/7. Like, and it's those moments I encourage people to go to it when they just need to be heard, and they don't want to be like on a help phone line, or they don't want to talk to a friend, or they haven't seen a counselor or therapist or whatever. I mean, like it's so amazing just to have that resource in your pocket. I mean, I used it all the time when I was going through the roughest part of my recovery, because it was a place that I could just go and get support. Wakey is very similar in concept. I always tell this story when I'm speaking, so forgive me, but like Wakey, it just cracks me up because it launched as a wake up app initially. So the idea is like you could set a timer and then you get a wake up call from a stranger at a certain time in the morning. And I, of course, loved this being the weirdo that I am. And it's like the same reason why I love staying in hotels too. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, wakey, what? So I download it. I'm so thrilled. I'm like, oh, I'm going to get a wake up call. It's going to be like this like wonderful woman with like this awesome British accent. She's going to be like, good morning, Jordan. Actually, that's not how British people sound. I can't do it right now. But this is someone with like an exotic accent, like very luscious, right? He was like going to call and be like, have the best day ever, Jordan. That's not what happened at all. I got the call, like I was already awake because I was so excited. And like, it was like the most terrifying voice ever. All I saw was like David from California. And he was like, good morning, Jordan. I was like, no. They then took down the app after that. And they ended up rebuilding it into this really cool peer support community where now you can go on and you can be like, hey, I want to be heard by someone about a breakup I've had or about finding purpose or about finding a job or like depression, anxiety, whatever. And you can go in there and within seconds get matched to someone that wants to listen. And then they connect the two of you for a 10-minute anonymous phone conversation. And you can't reach each other again. You only know the person's first name and nationality now, I think. Maybe you know their state. And it's awesome. It's just so cool because you hear someone's voice in real time. And it is as awkward as you can imagine it is. But by like minute 4 or 5, you get into a bit of a rhythm and it's beautifully powerful. These are two apps that I think don't get out there enough on campuses. And there's a bunch more, and we'll share some with you guys as well too. There's a bunch more. Like these are free apps that I've seen help a lot of people, myself included. Take advantage of them. Like it doesn't all have to come down to your peer support center or your counseling center. Sometimes people just need to know these resources are out there. Now, I do want to touch on one thing. It's really, really important. I'm not at all disparaging like your counselors or, oh no, I think I just lost my Wi-Fi. Okay. I might lose my Wi-Fi, so I apologize. I don't want to disparage the counselors at all on your campus. I mean, they do an amazing function. My role here is simply just to point out that, hey, there's more to the spectrum and there's more that we can offer. Okay. Callie, let me know if it cut out.
I can't hear you.
Oh, shoot.
I can see you.
Okay. Can anyone else hear me? Okay.
Sorry, guys.
Okay. So it's just Callie. We're good. We're good. Okay. So Wakey is awesome as well. We're almost there, guys. The last one is Good to Talk. Now, this is a Ontario-specific initiative. It's like the Kids Help Phone, only for students in Ontario, but everywhere. So feel free to use this if you're in Canada. If you're in the US, use it, but just pretend like you're Canadian. It's a 24/7 peer support line for students. It's phenomenal. I can't say enough good things about them and everything that they do. Sometimes it's just important that your students know that these things are out there. And again, it's all about how do you take people from being like, I'm not feeling so good, to feeling safe to reach out. A lot of the time, we need formal therapy. We need a counselor. We need a psychiatrist. We need someone to talk to. But the vast majority of people need more help in the in-between. So our job as leaders is to make sure that we're helping the communities around us and the people around us gain that capacity and self-awareness and that confidence to reach out, okay? Because no one is alone, ever, 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 ever. And doing any of these and so many other things I'm sure you guys are coming up with right now will do so much in moving the needle. Now, with that, let's do a couple minutes on sharing some of the things that are occurring to you guys about some really cool ideas that you have. I'm going to go back over to the chat window here, and then we'll just wrap up with a really simple thing. Oh, no, that's not it. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So if you guys could share now just a couple things that have occurred to you, like really cool ideas of something you would love to do on your campus. Maybe it was something that came up here, or maybe something that's like a combination of things, but like, let's hear a couple really cool different ideas. Anyone? Okay, Sarah, random acts of kindness. Are we seeing this, guys? We had little boxes around campus, and when students found it, they brought it to our student union office, and they got 2 prizes. That is awesome, Sarah. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So building on the random acts of kindness, how can we do something that's so cool? Wellness Wednesdays. It affects me. Absolutely. Liz, what I would say to that is how can you make it even more unique than that? I mean, you can do their campaign for sure. That would be awesome. But like you could do a lot just to make it like one more thing that's a little bit out there. Nicole, no, it doesn't have to be cost efficient. So like whatever's triggering you in your mind in a good way, whatever's coming up, feel free to share with everyone on here. And we actually have a place where we can keep this discussion going afterwards. Let's do a couple more here. Okay, I'll just leave this to you guys, and if we share anything else, we'll come back to it. But by all means, feel free to share. Liz says, using a whiteboard for students to write what mental health means to them and take photos. That is a great idea. And what if you, one step beyond that, what if you did something like a whiteboard that was in the shape of an Instagram photo where people could like stand in the frame too, and it had like these statements around it on the photo frame? Then you're creating something that's really Instagrammable worthy and people will share it online. I love that. That's great. Carissa, we do To Write Loves on Our Arms. Da, 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 da. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I should have talked about To Write Love on Our Arms. Thank you for bringing that up, Carissa. For anyone that's not familiar with what To Write Love on Our Arms does, it's phenomenal as well. Super well known in the US, but in Canada, not nearly as much. Gratitude wall, real talk room where students go in blindfolded. Awesome. Awesome, guys. I love the enthusiasm for these ideas. This is awesome. And believe me, this is just a starting point. Our hope is to certainly aggregate a lot of these cool things together. Kevin, let's see what you shared here, buddy. We had a wellness event in our school library during finals week. I gave out free granola bars and students got discount at the coffee shop and if they learned about suicide prevention. That's a great idea. Including any sort of food or giveaway, especially during a high anxiety time with an awareness message is killer. That's great. We handed out flowers to people and they gave the second to friends or professors. That's great, Tyrell. Nicole, let's leave off with Nicole's because I think that's a great one too. So Nicole says, I want to make a bunch of posters filled with real information so that students can learn how to help themselves. That kind of information that we get from a professional on easy methods of self-help. One of the biggest things that we are asked for, and we haven't done it yet, is like an infographic of where to get support. The challenge is where to get support varies a little bit depending on what state or country you're in. So we haven't developed a bunch yet. But I mean, what a cool way to do that, like just with very pragmatic information. And again, it's not you saying, hey, counselors, you don't matter. It's a way of just getting the information out a little bit more. And the more that's in people's faces, the more that you can really make a difference. Carissa, that is amazing. We gave out flowers and stuffed animals for Singles Awareness Day. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, Caitlin, we'll share this one then. One of my clubs on my campus collected thousands of pairs of shoes and laid them on the school's lawn to represent the numbers of students who had committed suicide across the US and then provided a place to talk about the problems students were having. That is beautiful. And like beautiful, but tragic and incredibly impactful. Thank you for sharing that. Namunga, I hope I'm pronouncing your name okay. That is awesome. Cheer Squad picked a random morning guy, a couple of faculty and staff to cheer on the students. I love that. That's so cool. That's something that if I were to do this again, I would include something where you shift the power dynamic. Like speaking of being counterintuitive, how do you change the hierarchy, right? That can be really exciting and engaging for students. Okay, look, guys, we're going to wrap up here, but I just want to share a couple announcements here. Okay. So the first thing is that we are going to send an invitation to you to join our Brave Campus Facebook group. Why a Facebook group? For a couple reasons. One, it's an area where we can all share and continue this conversation in a way that's open and accessible to all. It's going to be a closed group, but just like apply for access and you'll be granted. We will be inviting each of you if we can. We have all your email addresses from the webinar here, but if you use a different email address for your Facebook account, we won't see it. But if you don't get an invitation, if you don't see it, there's going to be an email that goes out following up from this, and it will have a link. Just go and click on it. We'd love to see you there. Otherwise, you can simply just like click in, just search for it in Facebook and it'll come right up. My hope is that we can continue the conversation. Lexi, hey Lex, you want, or actually Lexi and Callie, do you guys want to come over here for a sec?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So everyone knows Lexi and Callie. This is weird because we can't see anyone.
I know.
Yeah. But so Callie's going to be our community manager for the group, which means that every day she's going to be engaging and asking a question, sharing something, giving something away, offering praise. We're following this method that I've seen in a couple really cool Facebook groups. It's called ask, give, or praise. So you can only do one of those three things in the group. So the idea is either you're asking for help, you're giving praise to like one of your peers or your colleagues or another school for doing something great, or you can give something away. Like whether it's like free support, a call, like a cool resource you found, whatever. And it avoids like weird self-promotion-y stuff. So Callie's going to be rocking that.
Ooh, there's already a bunch of stuff in there for you guys to check out. So even a lot of you were putting things in the chat, like put them in the group so we can always go back and find them. And then when new people come, they get that resource too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Our hope is, I mean, this group is going to start with around 100 of us. And our hope is that it grows to campus leaders all over. So my second ask is I would love for you guys to join. And then I would love for you guys to invite some of the people that are at your campuses that are student leaders or faculty leaders, or staff as well. I mean, it's really important that we have everyone represented. And again, the purpose of Brave Campus is to create a space where we can exchange ideas about how to have these tough conversations on campus, because we just don't see anywhere else that's happening. And I want you guys to know that even though it's us as Disrupt that started this is not like a thing where we're going to try to like push and sell you our programs. That's not what this is about. It's just very honestly, like we see this conversation not happening and it matters to us and we know it matters to you guys. So our hope is that it's a space for that between all of us and we all feel a sense of ownership. So please click on that link. Just go to Facebook right now and just type in Brave Campus and join.
The link like 40 times.
Okay, perfect. So it's in there. It's in the chat. Go for it.
People look for you soon. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. And then last but not least, guys, so next Wednesday, we're going to do another webinar. We just had a schedule change. So the person we had is going to be moved around. So we'll announce in the next couple of days. It's going to be great. And then later next week, I believe on Thursday, we're going to have a very special surprise as well. We'll let you guys know. But the Wednesday webinar
it's big.
It's big.
It's really big.
It's huge.
It's enormous.
Oh, it's not Ryan Gosling, but it's close.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is something we're really dedicated to doing. This is fun for us. Our hope is fun for you guys. If you want to get engaged and host one of these, let us know too. It's not going to be me at all. I just did the first one so we can work out all the glitches. Probably not all, but a lot of them. And so in future ones, our hope is that it's basically a round robin and a bunch of us end up sharing stuff. So reach out to Callie on that. We'll make sure we have the application link for a session in the Facebook group as well. And otherwise, we'll see you guys there. If there's anything I mentioned today, any resources that you would like to see more of, any introductions you would like made, whether it's the 5-minute journal people or the thank you guy, Blake, just message, like post in the group and I'll hook it up right away. And otherwise, guys, I hope this becomes a really awesome community that we all feel very passionate about. With that, I wanted to say thank you for being here. I can't believe so many people were on. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
You guys were great. It was so good to talk to you. And just one more note on the submissions. Don't think that, I've only been in my role for a day or a year or 5. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. We want to hear what you have to give and say because everybody's experiences are valuable. Yeah,
thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's really, really important. So everyone's experience is super valuable. Please share, be honest and open with us about what you need and what you need help with. And please as well share feedback about how we did today. Sorry about the glitches. I'm running overtime. C'est la vie. Next week we'll be on time, but we'll look forward to seeing you guys in the group soon. Awesome. Well, it seems positive in the comments. If I sucked a lot, you can also send me a direct message. And I'll try not to talk to him.
Twitter.com/Jordan Axani.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Tyrell, to your question, yes, it is going to be the same time every week. So 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific.
Block off your calendar.
Yeah, block it off. Maybe what we can do for anyone that wants is send out a recurring meeting request. And now that you've registered for one, you're going to be registered for the others too. And if you don't want to be registered for the future ones, there's actually something in the email that is going to go out if it hasn't gone out already. So when there's an email that's going to come out and you can actually opt out of getting notifications for future ones because we know we know everyone's inboxes gets a little crazy. So same time, Simon just said hashtag Cocoa with Callie.
Hey! Shout out to all my Cocoa peeps.
That's a joke we'll explain another day for anyone that doesn't get it. Okay, so with that, we're going to sign off here. Thank you very much, guys. Heather, I just saw your note. Yes, this will be archived and you can watch.
Like
My
in the email that comes out to you in like 10 minutes.
An email is going to come out in a couple minutes with a replay link. My suggestion is you go past like the first 10 minutes after the glitches, because we can't edit it. So pass on my apologies. Please invite everyone to Brave Campus that you think would get benefit. Let's start a hearty conversation there. And again, that is facebook.com/group/Brave Campus. Search for Brave Campus. Callie, if you can throw it into the chat bot again, or the chat bar again, that'd be awesome. Sweet guys. This is Team Disrupt out of here. Thank you again, guys. All right. We look forward to speaking to you soon in the group. Bye. Yeah. I don't even know how to turn this thing off. Oh, sweet. Thanks, Carissa. Bye, guys. Thank you. We'll see how we get out of here.
You're still on there, Jordan.
Oh.